You're sitting at your desk last day of work, 30 years compressed into handshakes and emails. The paycheck stops next month. Your income drops 40%, and somehow you already feel wealthier than you felt in a decade. This doesn't make sense on paper, but it makes perfect sense once you understand what's actually happening. And what's happening isn't what you think. Most retirement planning focuses on one metric: will you have enough money? The real question nobody asks is this: why does less money feel like more? The answer reveals something uncomfortable about how wealth actually works. And it's not about abundance, it's about perception management. Hi, this is Mark. The illusion sounds simple. Debt disappears, so retirement feels richer. Wrong framing, that's the surface story. Let me show you the actual mechanism. When you stop working, you don't just lose a paycheck. You lose a psychological framework that's been organizing your entire life. That framework, the one that told you more income equals more security, collapses. And in that collapse, something shifts. The debt thing is real. Let's be specific. 30-year mortgage, $1,500 monthly car loan, $400 credit cards you've been servicing for 2 decades, $300 combined. That's $2,200 monthly vanishing from your obligation list. Your gross retirement income, $3,500 monthly Social Security pensions withdrawals combined. On paper, this looks catastrophic. You've lost 60% of working income. But here's what breaks the illusion: that debt service wasn't discretionary. It was mandatory psychological weight. Your brain doesn't calculate net worth the way an accountant does. Your brain calculates psychological pressure. When you had that mortgage, even earning $6,000 monthly, you felt constrained, because $1,500 of that wasn't really yours. It belonged to the bank. Same with the car payment. Same with the credit cards. Retirement doesn't increase wealth. It reorganizes which debts you're carrying. Here's where most people stop analyzing, and you need to keep going. Working years, 6,000 gross, 4,200 take home. Take home, but minus 2,200 debt service equals 2,000 actual discretionary money. Retirement, 3,500 gross, 3,200 take home, minus 0 debt service equals 3,200 actual discretionary money. You see what just happened? Your actual discretionary monthly income increased 60%. Not because you earned more, because obligations vanish. But there's a second layer, and this is where the psychological trap gets sophisticated. Time becomes currency. During working years, you're trading 2 things: money and time. An hour at work is just worth your hourly wage. It's worth the time you don't have. You buy convenience. You pay for speed. Takeout, instead of cooking $15 meal instead of 3. You're not paying for food, you're paying for time. Gas station fill-ups instead of off-brand fuel stations. $2 premium instead of 1 on every gallon. You're not buying better gas. You're buying 10 minutes, hiring someone to clean your house, $150 monthly instead of doing it yourself. You're not buying cleanliness. You're buying Saturday morning. Workers live in time poverty. They have money poverty too. But time poverty is the real killer. So they spend money to buy back time. Retirement inverts this completely. Time becomes abundant. Money becomes relatively scarce. So you reverse every transaction. Cook instead of buying takeout, save $400 monthly. Drive to discount retailers, save $100 monthly on fuel and convenience premiums. Maintain your own home, save $150 monthly on service calls. Travel during off-season, hotels cost 40% less in February than July. Your $3,200 monthly discretionary income combined with time abundance stretches like $5,000 or $5,500. This is economic efficiency, not poverty thinking. A retiree with modest income and abundant time can actually consume more than a working person with higher nominal income. But time scarcity, the retiree can optimize every dollar because they have the time to do it. Your brain feels this optimization and translates it to getting richer. You're not getting richer. You're converting an asset you didn't know you had time into economic advantage. Now the third mechanism, and this is where most financial advice breaks completely. Comparison architecture changes. During working years, your reference group is obvious. People you work with, people in your field, people in your income bracket. Your social media feed shows peers earning more, living better, acquiring faster. You're making $80,000 annually. You feel poor because your comparison set includes people making $120,000. You're 33% behind. That deficit is constant. It's psychological weight. Retirement changes your comparison set entirely. Suddenly you're comparing to other retirees, many living on $25,000 annually, many struggling with healthcare costs, many dependent on family support. Your $42,000 annual retirement income looks generous in this group. You're not 33% behind, you're 40% ahead. This psychological shift is profound and nobody talks about it because it's embarrassing. We don't want to admit our sense of wealth is determined by who we're standing next to. But it's true, a neuroscientist would tell you this is relative wealth processing. Your brain doesn't calculate absolute numbers, it calculates relative position within a reference group. Change the reference group. Your sense of wealth changes, your actual net worth stays identical. This explains a paradox that finance people notice but rarely articulate. Wealthy people often feel poor. Modest income people often feel rich. It's not about denial or gratitude. It's about reference architecture. The wealthy person comparing to billionaires feels impoverished. The retiree comparing to struggling retirees feels affluent. Same person, different comparison. Set completely different emotional experience. Now let's talk about actual expense reduction, because this part people underestimate. Your working years aren't just about job income. They're about work-related expenses. Commuting 200 to 400 monthly, gas maintenance, parking tolls, work wardrobe 100 to 300 monthly. Not because you're vain, but because workplace social hierarchy requires signally, work meals 200 to 400 monthly. You're not bringing lunch every day. You're joining colleagues. You're performing professionalism. Childcare, while you work 800 to 2,000 monthly for many family. That's a full job's income going directly to enable your other job. Work stress expenses, 300 plus monthly, extra coffee, extra gas for stress relief drives, convenience purchases you wouldn't otherwise make because you're mentally exhausted. Total work-related expense, 1,600 to 3,400 monthly. This isn't lifestyle. This is infrastructure for working retirement. Removes the infrastructure. You stop buying clothes to signal competence because you're not in a workplace hierarchy anymore. You stop eating out because you have time to cook. You stop paying for childcare because there's no childcare triggering your work schedule. The Bureau of Labor Statistics publishes this: retirees spend 20 to 30% less than working-age adults on nearly identical lifestyles. Your 3,200 monthly retirement income covers expenses that would require 4,200 to 4,600 in working years. This isn't a trick. This is structural. Working creates expensive infrastructure. Retirement removes the infrastructure. Your brain experiences this as my money goes further. I must be wealthier. Technically true, practically, it's just that your expenses matched a different life. Here's the element that most retirement planning completely misses: delayed gratification finally pays. 20 years of driving a 2005 Honda, 30 years of vacations to your in-laws' house instead of international travel. 15 years of wearing the same 3 pairs of jeans while your peers updated their wardrobes constantly. Retirement is the first moment when you can actually say yes to those deferred desires. Your first international trip in retirement tastes different. Not because the trip is better, because you waited. Anticipation converted into experience. That hobby you've been planning for 15 years, photography, woodworking, travel, collecting. Now you have both time and money to pursue it after decades of wanting it. The acquisition feels luxurious. Your brain experiences this as I'm finally living well. This is powerful psychology. You're not comparing your retirement life to your working life in the present. You're comparing it to your working life as it actually felt: constrained, deferred, postponed. Retirement feels abundant because it's the first time in 40 years you're not saying no to yourself. That psychological payoff is real. It's also completely independent of actual wealth. Social Security operates as a psychological trick too, though most people don't frame it this way. During your working years, Social Security was a tax you resented at 500 monthly. Disappeared from your paycheck. It felt like extraction. In retirement, Social Security becomes income. The exact same 2,000 monthly that you resented as a tax now feels like a gift. Your brain doesn't process this as the government is giving me back money. I already contributed. Your brain processes it as I have a guaranteed income stream that I can outlive. Stability is wealth's best psychological friend. You could have 5,000 monthly from investments, but worry about market volatility. Or you could have 2,000 monthly from Social Security and sleep soundly. Which feels wealthier? The second one. Empirically, studies on financial anxiety confirm this. People with lower income and high certainty report less stress than people with higher income and uncertainty. Social Security is psychologically wealthy because it's guaranteed. This might be the most important shift. Your mindset transforms from accumulation mode to presence mode. Working years organize around a narrative and building towards security. The future is what matters today. Is a means to tomorrow. This narrative keeps you in low-level stress. You're never secure enough. Your tomorrow is always insufficient. You're climbing a ladder that doesn't have a top. Retirement flips the narrative. I've already built today is the point. The future is already here. This shift quiets the scarcity voice in your brain. When you stop climbing, you can actually see what you've accumulated. It looks like abundance, not because the abundance is new, but because you stopped long enough to notice it. Your brain doesn't calculate wealth as assets minus liabilities. Your brain calculates wealth as, do I have enough to stop worrying? Working years always know. There's always more to accumulate retirement. Yes, the accumulation phase is over. That psychological yes is worth more than 100,000 in investment return. Here's what almost every retirement article misses. Your retirement feeling of wealth has almost nothing to do with your actual net worth. It has everything to do with 4 psychological mechanisms working simultaneously. Debt removal reducing psychological pressure. Time abundance converting to economic efficiency. Comparison group shifting to a more favorable reference set, work infrastructure expenses. Vanishing, these 4 factors combine to create a genuine experience of increased wealth. But here's the uncomfortable part. These mechanisms work regardless of whether you've actually planned well for retirements. You could retire underfunded and feel wealthy because the psychological mechanisms activate anyway. You could retire overfunded and feel anxious because you're comparing to wealthier peers. Most retirement planning focuses on the wrong metric. Do you have enough money? When the actual metric is, have you constructed your retirement life in a way that activates these psychological mechanisms? The person who retires to a paid-off house in a low-cost area with Social Security as guaranteed income will feel wealthier than the person who retires with twice the investments, but still has a mortgage and lives in an expensive city. Same net worth, different construction, different psychological experience. This is why most people report feeling richer after retirement. The mechanics aren't about earning more or accumulating more. The mechanics are about reorganizing your life in a way that activates psychological wealth signals. Understand these mechanisms, and you understand something most financial advisors miss completely. Retirement wealth isn't an accounting number, it's a constructed experience. Build it correctly, and you feel rich. Build it incorrectly, and you feel poor regardless of your actual assets. That's the real reason retirement feels like becoming wealthy.